Hi, team. Welcome to 10 Talks. So today's conversation is all about loneliness. What happens when we transition from sport, when we transition from business? What happens in our life when we have a change? And what is loneliness? Why does it show up when you were okay with the fact that you were going to transition or you were actually looking forward to it? What's happening in our minds, in our bodies, just in our brains? What's happening when we have this feeling come across that maybe we're not very familiar with it? Maybe we haven't felt it in a very long time. Or we actually think of loneliness as something to do with relationships versus it being literally a relationship with ourselves. So, Mark on our team here as our sports psychiatrist, here to really just talk with us about what's happening and what can we learn. So, Mark, as always, thank you so much for the gift of having you on our team.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again. Um, Loneliness, especially in elite sport, it could be lonely at the top.
Yeah.
Once you've made it there, a lot of people. Well, you may not feel like a lot of people understand you, but a lot of people don't understand you. And so there is a small community of folks that reach that level. But especially when you're really at that level, you're under media scrutiny. You're constantly feeling like you have to live up to other people's expectations other than your own, which when you're playing sport as a kid, you're playing for fun. So there's actually different, developmental stages of playing sports, to gain mastery and socialization and having fun. And then eventually you become very expert in your sport, and you get to that point where people start to, really, there's like the adulation and praise and all that stuff, but also negative feedback. So you can feel more loneliness, and that can lead to a feeling of isolation, and then being more prone to depressed mood. We're social creatures. That's what makes us human. We crave relationships with other people, and when loneliness is starting to creep in, rather than viewing it as a harbinger of depression, it should be a reminder to ourselves that we're not actually scratching that itch and getting enough socialization. And so we should be saying, hey, we need to be connecting with those folks on our team. Problem we have with a lot of clubhouses is that folks don't really talk about their personal lives necessarily, in the locker room. They may just be talking about the sport. In fact, they may keep that private and separate. That's a challenge when you're compartmentalizing your life between the pitch and off the pitch. If that makes any sense. But fact is, you're still the same person, despite the fact that you might have some identity issues related to I'm an athlete first. But you're a human. And so you do have your own social needs that need to be met.
Well, Mark, as you talk about just that loneliness at the top and that isolation, okay, I feel the itch and I want to build, I want to reach out and have some relationships, but who do I trust? And I haven't invested in my relationships because I have been isolating and I have been really lonely at the top. So when I need someone, they're not there. And I also can't really trust anyone. How do we start this process?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So a lot of folks will be like, okay, so who are my trusted confidants? Who are the folks around me? I mean, a lot of times you'll see, a football player, soccer player, whomever, have their posse of folks that comes to every game, and it may not be their family. It might just be a bunch of friends who might actually be siphoning off for not financial reasons, fame, whatever. But is that who you trust? Well, this was a really big question that came up recently that has been tackled by some folks at the International Olympic Committee, and they created a website called Athlete 365. The entire purpose of this website is to connect athletes with one another and create a sense of community online, and to answer all those questions that an athlete might be having. One, that I'm not alone, but when I'm on the road, where do I stay? Where do I eat? Who should I trust? Who's available? In the middle of the night, whatever. Yeah. This website can be a one-stop shop for folks if you're an elite athlete. You don't have to be an Olympian. That being said, it was originally developed for Olympic level athletes from all over the world. So joining a group of athletes who are going through the same thing would be a great first place to go. But engaging your team, if you're the team captain, take it upon yourself to connect with the folks that are there in the locker room and engage them outside of sport as humans. That's why the family dinner for the team is so important, so that they are considered that unit, and why all those icebreakers and stuff preseason is so important to the development of the team. Because when the team is working as a cohesive unit off the field, absolutely they're going to play better together because they're going to trust each other. And that trust is only developed over time through normal human activities.
I want to explore the awkwardness of not being very good at interacting, not about sport, and interacting as a human, because I haven't been practicing being a great human as much as I've been practicing being a great athlete, right? I've got all the reps, I've got the playbook, I've got coaches, and then it's time for me to be this great human. I don't have a coach. I don't have anyone. In fact, I have people tell me, you're kind of awkward, or I wish, let's talk sport because that's what's so interesting about you. So talk about identity management. If really all you value me about is my sports and the stories and wanting to have that, I'm going to feel like that's my value. And it actually is more isolating.
So you're right. Because again, you don't know what you don't know, but what you can think of is your translatable skills. So what makes you good at your sport? Use that. Use that and find out other interests and activities that you might enjoy. There might be a reason why a lot of athletes crave the competitive nature of some activities, some good, some bad. Video games, super popular. As long as we're not overdoing it, I can see a lot of folks get in e-gaming. Of course, that's now its own sport. Negative gambling, you get that high from competing. Maybe you versus the house or you versus you, but that's not something to do productively. That's why then you don't want to also then go down the development of stuff we've already talked about, but like the substance use routes and other things that are endorphin releasing. So finding things that you're good at or enjoy, at least those translatable skills to find other activities would be great. But keeping in mind some of those temptations. So getting your team together and doing a group outing and just sort of making it, being voluntold. You're going to go to the ropes course, or you're going to go on a hike, or it still could be slightly athletic in nature, but it's not what you do every day. And then eventually, if someone is a little bit more awkward or socially closed off or needs a little bit of help, recognize that in your teammate and take them with you, because they are just going to need that nudge. Most athletes, or at least a good chunk of them, especially in team sports, tend to be more extroverted. Not all of them, especially those in individual sports. A lot of my introverted clients tend who are athletes tend to thrive in more individual sport that require like individualized training. Think swimming, competing against the pool, running, like it's you versus you, Zen nature, but you're still around a team together, just a team of individuals working together. Those kinds of folks sometimes need a little bit more prodding to do a group activity, but it's still super important to get them out.
One of my favorite things that happened with one of my corporate teams when we were talking about just developing as humans and learning to care and connect and outside of performance is that they had lunch together every day. And if you talked about work, you had to put on this hard hat, so that it was just a notice like, okay, put the hat on, right? Like you basically got an out, basically. And so it was very fun to watch them start to share what was happening with their children, or, just anything that was another dimension of their humanness. And I love really the competition of that. So they took the fact that they're a high achieving corporate team and they're used to competing in business, and they honored who they are. They're they're high achievers. They like competing. And now they're competing to be great people at lunch and find out as much as they can about their teammates. And you cannot talk about work. So that's just an example of kind of a fun game way to come in and make this interesting and stay in alignment with, you're a high achiever, you're a competitor, you're, at the top. So let's own that, start with the truth. and start to figure out how to win this thing called life that's as intentional as the sport game you're playing. So again, I want to get back to that moment in time when everything's been going really well because I've been on the climb to be a CEO or to be an elite athlete. And all of my attention has been on that pursuit. And I get there, and that's where the loneliness hits, is that I thought this was going to be the most amazing moment of my life. And I've been training for this or working towards it. And the letdown of kind of looking around and not having anyone to share it with, or that feeling of isolation.
Yeah. One of the best things you can do in that spot, in order to kind of knock yourself
Right.
out of that stuckness and feeling like you're alone and that isolation, is almost a forced socialization through volunteering.
Okay.
And thinking of the world being more than just your little bubble. Because if you think about it, if you're on the big stage, of course you're being just adored by many young fans. So an easy thing to do, to connect with your people, it would be to give back. So there's a reason why, aside from the fact that it's just good, there's a reason why a lot of athletes will visit the local children's hospital and get involved. One, it's just incredible what can happen to those young people that are struggling with a chronic illness. But two, what it does then to the folks that are giving back, and it can create this positive, pendulum, if you will, that's really great. But that again, forced socialization, where the world is bigger than just you, that can knock you out of that proneness to depression, which we've already talked about. And what all those things are is when your body starts to tell you that we're not feeling great, and you're not sleeping great, low motivation, low concentration, but social isolation and anhedonia, that not really enjoying what you used to enjoy. Those two things, ding ding ding. Let's get out of the house. Staying on your couch and watching Netflix for the 40th time is not going to fix it.
And if you need to call a friend or call someone to actually take a walk with you, do anything to where there's a connection piece versus more just all about you. And Mark, I love you bringing up the sports philanthropy component, because that is so much inside our work. We're a 3-dimensional model as sports life coaches, and we really work with a person personally, professionally, and philanthropically. And so many times people don't think of the philanthropic side. They think that's going to require too much time or too much energy or money, or I don't know, they have all these stories. And it's so beautiful to hear that a winning strategy for loneliness is connecting to something so much bigger than yourself, and to really gain that perspective of, it's not all about me. It certainly is about me in the training, and that's very much a one-dimension side of it. But what a gift to use your platform to change somebody else's life.
Well, if you can, in one fell swoop, help other people, help your mood, help your marketing, make you, connect with other people, open up the world, that it's not just, again, this tiny little bubble. Philanthropy makes all the sense in the world. Not enough people are doing it.
Well, and for us, we define philanthropy as being a champion giver. So you can give hope. It isn't about giving money. Not everybody is in a position to give money.
Time is much more important.
Oh, and hope, right? I mean, like, we're
Yeah.
all in the power. We all have the power to give hope. And the minute that you're feeling lonely or isolated, see what it feels like to reach out, not to get something from someone, but to actually give hope to them. And social media, this is a gift, is that really our pro athletes and our isolated people have an opportunity to connect, and try it not being about you, and try giving hope and talking about something that isn't about sport, and see what it does physiologically as well as just that mood lifter. So Mark, as we talk about loneliness and we talk about isolation at the top, let's talk about when it happens to us and we don't want it. So for instance, we get cut from a team, or there's a change and we have an injury, or from a work perspective, we get laid off. We didn't ask for that. We were doing what we were doing. We were happy with it, and we were socially integrated, and everything was going well. And you really kind of cut off my source, meaning the locker room, the highs that I'm getting from performing, the belonging to a team, to a company. Now what do I do?
So it's that unexpected
Mhm.
transition that's the hardest in sport, but also in your professional career. Because if you can see it coming and you can plan, of course it's going to end up being easier for you. And that in those sense, that's when you really depend on your own entourage. You actively look for a sense of community online. I'd already mentioned Athlete 365. There's locker room sports, the athletes' voices. There's lots of different things or different places that you can look. Just a simple Google search to connect with other people who I can assure you
Mm.
have gone through the same thing. But getting a mentor would be really nice, and almost from an organizational perspective, making sure that there's a mentor system already in place for
Mm.
basically a former athlete who might be giving back,
Yeah.
philanthropy,
Yes.
but who's been through the trenches, has maybe already had that either expected or unexpected transition out of sport to kind of guide that
Mhm.
person through the tough time would be huge, because you really can't do it all alone. You have to you This is the time to help and kind of lean on other people. Things get really dark. That's when it would be a good idea to seek professional help, and we're ones who can help, again, guide you to that light.
Well, what's interesting is, again, the power of team, really recognizing, okay, I'm the first beginning, the first link, and then I'm going to connect to people that I trust, that I value. And even if it's a very small circle, it's a very valuable circle. We don't need this to be large, right? We just need one person that we reach out to,
Mhm.
a mentor, a sports life coach, an organization, an online community. The key is we need each other. We need to really connect, and we've got to have that courage to say, who are my people and who can support me?
Absolutely. And just if you're a coach out there, being open minded and fostering a sense of connectedness among your players, and not only thinking about the W's, or thinking that the W comes from just a focus on the technical qualities of the sport. That if you really work on the social aspect too, that I can assure you everything will get better. Most every team that has performed at that elite level had some kind of grounding, some kind of training camp where they became friends, but like really bonded family members off the field.
Mark, thank you for bringing that up, because so many times from a high performance, both at work from a time management perspective and in sport, in terms of really needing time on task, perform, 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 that can actually burn us out from a human perspective. And the relationships can be our rest and recovery. They can actually fill us up in a way that we come back to perform at a higher level. And for a coach that's really honoring whole person development, really respecting that, let's bring in that 3D model, personal, professional, and philanthropic, it's going to show up on the field or at work in such a measurable way that it's so much more valuable than just work, work, work.
Yeah, one of the best things that happened when my first job out of training was that we, as a group assignment, the folks that I worked with on my floor read the book "If Disney Ran Your Hospital." So thinking of customer service and appreciation, thinking of people, the people aspect to quality healthcare, it was just so valuable. It had nothing to do with dollars and cents, or even just the approach to diagnosis and treatment. It was mostly just keeping other people in mind and how they may perceive things. So bringing that back to sport, like just being mindful that the players on the team are human, the coach is human, the referees are human, the fans are human. We're all going to have human responses to stressful situations, but you have a bigger landscape, things go better.
What a gift to go relational versus transactional, in terms of that transactional is showing up and just getting things done and on task. And here we go. Let's just get in as much playing time as possible, or as much practice time as possible. And thank you for bringing in, it's all about the human component and how we feel as humans, the connectivity, the belonging. I'm going to perform at such a higher level with so much more purpose and deep connection when I'm playing for a teammate or for a family member or something so much bigger than myself.
Absolutely.
Okay, team, it's up to you. Go out and practice all these winning strategies and recognize that the world's big out there. You play a small role in something so much bigger than yourself, and know that we are on your support team to get you coached up to really enjoy being a human, not only a high performer. Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely. No, take care.